Hi, fifth graders. Today we are going to be taking notes together in this video. So what you can do is, as you follow along with me, pause the video as needed to catch up on your notes. So at the top of your page, you should have the I can statement, Module 4, Lesson 25 at the very top. And then I can divide a whole number by a fraction. Copy that down. Pause the video if you need a second. Then unpause it when you are ready. So today we are going to be talking about dividing fractions or dividing with fractions. So a whole number by a fraction, taking a whole number and splitting it into or by fractions. First, let's review what division looks like. So we're going to write review. Remember, if I write it down, you write it down and pause the video if you need to. Let's look at 8 divided by 2. So 8 is our whole. We have 8 things, and we are splitting it, or we are seeing how many copies of 2 fit in 8. So even if we were to write it like this, a different way, we're seeing how many times or how many copies does 2 fit into 8. So how many copies of 2 fit into 8? So that's what this 2 shows. So remember, copying this down, pausing the video if you need to. We would say 4 copies of 2 fit into 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. If I counted by 2s, 1 copy of 2, 2 copies of 2, 3 copies of 2, 4 copies of 2. 4 groups of 2 fit into 8. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. We can use this same thinking to help us solve fraction, or when we divide by a fraction, a whole number by a fraction. So let's look at the example, 2 divided by 1/3. So when we are looking at 2 divided by 1/3, we are going to draw a model and use a tape diagram, or use a number line if needed. So we're taking 2, which is our whole, and we're breaking it up, or we're seeing how many 1/3 can fit in 2. Okay, our whole number, and then how many copies of 1/3 fit in 2. So we start by drawing our whole. Here's 1 whole, here's 2 wholes. So we draw our whole. So step 1, draw the holes. Not as holes like we dig, holes like we have 2 holes. Remember, pause it if you need to. Once we've drawn our holes, we need to think about the next step. So the next part that we would work on, right, is splitting each hole. Here's 1 hole, here's 2 holes. We would split each hole into thirds. So step 2 is split each hole into the fraction. So if I'm looking for thirds, 1/3, or if I'm looking for thirds, I would split this hole, right? This is 1 hole, into thirds. And then I would split my second hole in 2/3. So now I have all my holes, both holes split into thirds. I'm just going to label them. This means 2. Then I split 2 into thirds. So, right, if this is, we're just looking at one hole, this is 1, this is 1/3, this is 1/3, this is 1/3, this is another hole, this is 1/3, this is 1/3, this is 1/3. So then we take a look and we count how many parts or how many fraction parts fit in all the holes. So remember, if you have 2 holes, it'd be how many fit in the 2 holes. And we are going to write down what we know. Zoom out a little bit. Again, remember, if you need to pause the video, you can pause the video. So we know that in 1 hole equals 3 units, or 3/3, because we, right, 1 hole, there are 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. In 2 holes, there are 6/3, equal 6/3, or 6 pieces. So we are only focused on the pieces. We're only focused on the pieces, not even the thirds part. We're focused on the pieces. So step 4 is that you count, right? Step 4 would be to rewrite the equation. So how many, remember, what we are looking for? We are looking for how many copies of 1/3 fit in 2. How many copies of 1/3 fit in 2? So we're going to write that down. How many copies of 1/3 fit in 2? How many copies are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 copies in 2 holes. So we write 2 divided by 1/3 equals 6, because 6 groups or 6 copies of 1/3 equals fits in 2. 6 copies of 1/3 fit in 2. Pause the video if you need to. We are going to take a look at another example after lunch. Please make sure you have copied down all of these notes before you come back after lunch.